Hello everyone. I'll be starting a new series on the introduction to the idea of God as discussed by Jordan B. Peterson, and in particular the psychological significance of the biblical stories. So today I'll start with an introduction, and I'll start with the question of why bother? Why bother studying the psychological significance of the biblical stories? Now, first of all, the first thing we have to understand is that the Bible is a very strange book. The Bible has survived thousands of years. The Bible has survived, kingdoms have been built, empires have been built and fallen and left the Bible there. There's a lot we don't understand about the Bible. It's interconnected in so many ways. It's interwoven in so many different ways. And each sentence, each paragraph, each parable, each chapter, each book has its own meaning, and it can serve. There are so many there are multiple interpretations that you can source from the Bible, right? So the Bible is a very strange book, and we don't understand why we believe it and why we don't believe some part of it right now, and why we used to believe some parts of it maybe in the earlier times, and where these stories came from. We usually say that that the Bible was written and the people they were directed by God to write it, and that's sort of trying to say that we don't really understand these stories and how they came about and why they work, and why you can source multiple interpretations from this book. Now, I'll try and talk about it because I believe that the best way to learn about something is to talk about it, right? And so I believe we should approach these stories as a mystery, because there's a lot that we don't understand about um, them, right? Now, let's start with Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche. So Friedrich Nietzsche was a very big critic of dogmatic Christianity, that is, Christianity as was instantiated in institutions. The Christianity whereby you have to follow this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this, and this is the way, and there is no flexibility, right? He was a big critic of that, and what Nietzsche said was that even though he was a big critic of dogmatic Christianity, he believed that the scientific revolution would not have come about had it not been for Christianity, right? So in other words, you could argue that Christianity shot itself in the foot, right? And this is why I'm saying this. You see, Christianity instilled the aspect of truth in people, right? It got to a point whereby this truth was so instilled in people that people woke up and started asking themselves, why is it that we believe what we believe, right? And from that, we were able to grow and bring about the scientific revolution, right? It's like, you can think about it as like waking up on a single day and asking yourself, why is it that we cook chapati on Christmas, right? So the ritual of cooking chapati precedes understanding the reason why you cook chapati, right? Take of something like sacrifices. We offered sacrifices before we came to understand why we offer sacrifices. Like the practice, the ritual itself precedes the reason, right? We just did it and we didn't understand why we did it, but it came to a point whereby we started asking ourselves why we did it, right? And so another thing that is key is that Nietzsche, despite being a critic, he was a champion of the disciplinary aspect of Christianity. And now this leads us to understand why Christianity led to the scientific revolution, right? See, Nietzsche believed that you can never be free unless you have been a slave, right? And this is something I'm always saying. You can never understand the value of heaven unless you have been to hell. So for Nietzsche, Imagine a child. A child does not move from childhood directly into adulthood. Instead, the child undergoes a state of imposed discipline, right? Self-imposed discipline. And that's why, for example, in universities, courses are called disciplines, right? They are disciplines because you put yourself through a discipline. You put yourself in a state of self-imposed slavery so that you come out of the other end as a sharpened person and you can establish yourself in society. Maybe as a tailor, or as a doctor, or as a welder, or as a lawyer, right? You have to put yourself under a state of discipline, right? And so Christianity did that for human beings, for civilization. So civilization was a child. It was put through a state of discipline by Christianity, and it came out of the other end as an adulthood, having established itself. And so that's where you started seeing the scientific revolution coming up, right? And that's why I'm saying that you cannot move from childhood to adulthood unless you undergo a state of self-imposed discipline, and that is whereby you may be trained on a certain course or a certain skill, right? And so Christianity served that role of disciplining civilization so that it could come out of the other end having established itself. And so in the late 1800s, Nietzsche announced that he made a claim that God was dead. And you often hear people talking about that as if it is something to be triumphant about. But for Nietzsche, it was not. The fact that God was dead was not something to be happy about, right? Because Nietzsche was too nuanced a thinker to be that simple-minded. Now, in my next video, because time is up, I'm going to discuss Nietzsche's claim that God is dead. So stay tuned.